Hey everyone, it's Types, and there is currently one deck that is dominating the metagame post-rotation in the Pokemon TCG, which, by the way, rotation is coming up in like a couple of weeks internationally. This is, in Japan, rotation has already happened. But obviously, if you can't see, that deck's Dragapult. Right? Dragapult is obliterating the metagame. It's at over a quarter of the metagame in the top 16 of these league tournaments, which of these are, I wouldn't say they're the most serious. They're like relatively serious, certainly more so than just like random play. And so, you will see more meta stuff. Obviously, we see a lot of other stuff though, right? Looking at like 20% is not any of the decks shown here. But Dragon Bolt's more than all those other weird decks. And you look at the second place stack, which is at 6.5%, which is like a quarter of that. So Dragapult is just like obliterating in the metagame. It's super good. But how did we get here, right? Because Dragapult EX, it's a very powerful card. I'm not going to sit here and deny that, but it wasn't always this true top deck. So today we're going to be taking a look at Dragapult EX in its history in the Pokemon TCG and look at how it's gotten to the strength that it's at and is going to presumably continue being at for quite a while here. But first of all, we need to talk about what the card does. Dragapult EX, if you're not familiar, of course, it is Dragapult, so it's a stage 2, and it is unsurprisingly dragon type. This is actually the first dragon type Dragapult, but it is like kind of in the name there. That means it doesn't have a weakness. I'd sit here and say like, oh, that's crazy, that's super huge, but it's not. And of course, if you're familiar with the Pokemon TCG, you know that like saying it doesn't have a weakness isn't really true. It's got Liz Clefairy EX, which hits it for weakness there, which is pretty common. And then you also have the fact that you're an EX, you're a 2-prizer, a high HP 2-prizer because you are a stage 2, but you do require some setup, as well as your attack requires some setup. Jet Headbutt, for example, here though, is just one colorless, so that's not going to require so much setup. That's not the attack that's taking the, doing the big stuff or taking the big stuff to set up either. It's something you will use, but certainly not the reason it's good. And then you have Phantom Dive, though that is definitely the reason why it's good for 1 fire and a psychic. You do 200, put 6 damage counters on your opponent's bench Pokemon in any way you like. This is also a Terra Pokemon. This matters some, as we'll kind of take a look at throughout this video, but not like a ton. So ultimately, there's something very powerful about this card. But looking at older, we can see Dragapult VMAX. This is a similar card, but it has a few things that make it a lot worse. It gives up 3 prizes. It does less active damage. It does a little less bench damage as well. But it is a stage, essentially stage 1 here. And it is only psychic, which is presumably better. We'll talk about Crispin in this video, but ultimately being just psychic is probably a bit better. This was actually the first powerful VMAX. I would say there were a handful in the Sword and Shield base set, but none of them were particularly good. Dragapult ended up being pretty good. They're not insane. Of course, this is a while ago. This came out here in 2020. We, of course, had the entire Scarlet and Violet era since then, and Dragapult is in the Scarlet and Violet era near the end of that, Dragapult EX. But, of course, Dragapult EX also is a Stage 2, sort of also a Stage 1, which is Dracloak. Dracloak is also very good with the ability Recon Directive once per turn, and by the way, this is once per turn per Dracloak. You can look at the top 2 cards of your deck and put one of them into your hand, the other on the bottom of your deck. I will also mention Dragon Headbutt is, like, fine here. I'd say a bit better than Jet Headbutt on the stage 2 there, being decent damage at some points in the game. But ultimately, this allows you to look at the top 2, get a card there. So it lets you draw a card with more selection than just drawing a card for each Dracloak you have. So it's quite nice addition to the deck with some extra draw. I will mention though, Dragapult EX has seen play without Dracloak. Dracloak has not really seen play without Dragapult EX. But if we look at Dragapult EX came out, it predominantly saw play within Regidrago V-Star more so than on its own. If we find a Regidrago list here that uses Regidrago V-Star, which by the way is super powerful and expanded with Dragapult EX, letting you copy any Dragon Pokemon attacks of Dragon Pokemon in your discard pile for not exactly for free, but you use the attack on Regidrago V-Star, you use that attack cost. So Dragapult EX attack has seen play without Dracloak. Dracloak is not the only reason this card is good, but when Dragapult EX came out, this is kind of how it was played, and it was okay. It was a fine deck. It was of course a new deck, so people were excited to play it, but also Twilight Masquerade, the set this card came out in, is like super good. We have the Ochre Ponds or Festival Lead. Festival Lead is it's okay. It's not like super good, but it's not super bad either. As I said, the Ogrefont's not the fire one, though that was in the set, but the other three are all quite good. Iron Thorns EX is good. Punky Dory is quite good. And oh, Frostlass was in this set, also pretty good. And trainer wise, nothing crazy, I guess, but there's some pretty good cards in this set. I mean, Unfair Stamp, super good post rotation. Blood Mirror Luna EX as well. This set is just like super nuts. But Dragapult EX is one of the most powerful cards in the set as well. Of course, you have Dragapult EX and Dracloak to, again, draw you cards and be a powerful attacking option. You also have Radiant Charizard as a late game finisher. If you're not familiar with Radiant Charizard, it's essentially the same thing as Blood Mirror Luna EX. I would say Blood Mirror Luna EX is a bit stronger than Radiant Charizard, but there's definitely an argument to be made one way versus the other. They have some differences. But then you have some other engines in this deck. You actually have Rotom V and Force Seal Stone, as well as 3 copies of Arven here to get you set up, and 4 rare candies paired with Pidgeot EX, which of course we do have in standard, but isn't really paired with Dragapult EX in standard, and then also Barrel. So there's like a lot of engine stuff going on in the deck. This is focused around getting out Neo Upper Energy. Neo Upper Energy is currently played in Dragapult EX in standard pre-rotation. We will take a look at the lists being played post rotation at different times as well. When I say post rotation, I am talking about like the newest rotation that again hasn't happened internationally but has happened in Japan. But this was before the previous rotation, so we see some late Sword and Shield era cards which were out when Dragapult EX came out. And as I said, Dragapult EX was okay. It had some energy issues and consistency issues and power issues. It's okay, right? Ultimately, Dragapult is it was okay here, but it wasn't amazing. It was kind of fine. And the ace pick is also interesting, as I said, to keep an eye out for, because Neo Upper Energy is played in current standard, but it will change, and that is something important to keep an eye out for. Then moving on, here is a list from the Stellar Crown format. I will mention Shrouded Fable added the addition of the Dusknoir line. Dusknoir and Dusclops were very powerful with Dragapult EX right out the gate, allowing you to knock them out and then do some powerful snipe damage there. Of course, you are knocking yourself out, giving up a prize. This does allow you to manipulate the board a bit for Briar. Briar and Sparkling Crystal are powerful cards for Dragapult EX because they synergize with the fact that it is a Terra Pokemon. And also Crispin there as well. Crispin doesn't just work with Terras, but accelerates energies to Pokemon of different types, and did come out in Stellar Crown, a Terra focus set there, or I guess a Stellar focus set there. And Crispin lets you get energy on Dragapult EX easily, alongside Sparkling Crystal, which also lets you do it, paired with Arven. And we can see the decks are running, we see like a 4-2-3 Dragapult line here, 2-0-2 Pidgeot, 2-1-1 Dusknoir line, so a lot of stage 2s and 4 rare candies here, and not that many Dracloaks, being a more aggressive deck here, with 2 amazingly powerful tools, probably the 2 most powerful tools we've seen, or 2 of the 3 most powerful tools we've seen in the recent history of the Pokemon TCG. I guess I'd say Air Balloon's very good. I guess some of the TM, specifically TM Evo, probably is also very good. I would say Force Seal Stone is better than any of those, and Sparkling Crystal is also very powerful, but it is your ace spec as well. And as I said, it is really, really good here. Dragapult EX with Stellar Crown and Shrouded Fable got some really nice buffs, really pushing it up. Briar letting you take an extra prize on a turn is really powerful, as a Dusknoir can manipulate that. And I guess I will say Briar and like Dragapult now, I don't play it, and it's not really played, but it is an interesting concept that there's not really a reason you can't play it. Here you can search it with Lumineon V, and post rotation you can search it with Meowth EX, but it still is a good card. And outside of that, the deck is somewhat different, but we still see like Radiant Charizard. I mean, there wasn't a rotation that happened. So, the additions of Crispin and Sparkling Crystal and Briar and Dusknoir, they definitely did help out the deck, and they allowed you to apply more pressure to your opponent and have more control over the game. But as you can see, the deck is still pretty aggressive, not relying too much on Dracloak and relying on just pushing ahead and through your opponent really quickly, and not really letting them do anything about it. Then we have the next list. This was in the which format was this? I've since forgotten. Let me quickly find it. I believe it's the what is this? Is this Prismatic Evolutions or Surging Sparks? Yeah. So during the Surging Sparks format, for some reason, Dragapult Iron Thorns was like super popular. If anyone knows why, specifically during this format, then tell me, that'd be useful. I think this is after Iron Thorns won the World Championship. I don't remember. But ultimately, Dragapult EX paired with Iron Thorns EX was like super popular apparently, with some like disruptive stuff being a slower, more setup-based deck. And again, this was in the Surging Sparks format, the set before Prismatic Evolutions came out. And Prismatic Evolutions, of course, introduced a pretty powerful new card, which we'll get to in just a moment. Iron Thorns allowed you to set up behind it. You could attack with Iron Thorns EX and then get the energies on Dragapult EX, maintain a powerful hand with Dracloak, and generally have access to the resources you needed when you needed them as well through the use of Dracloak and your draw or search supporters. And that was pretty much how you played the deck with some pretty good disruption behind Iron Thorns EX. Look at the metagame, you could stop, Pidgeot EX and some various different Pokemon with powerful abilities like Gardevoir EX. Gholdengo EX had a decent ability, obviously, and Pond EX and things like that, right? So Iron Thorns EX was pretty nice. This deck was somewhat popular. Definitely a bit of an outlier in terms of Dragapult builds. It looks pretty different than most of the other ones, and we'll see that it, quickly reverted back to what we kind of see now. Looking here, this is a Dragapult list post-rotation of the Sword and Shield era. So no more pre-rotation things. We see the old list was running. This one was running. Oh yeah, this was running Precious Trolley as the ace back, which was something. This list here is now running Unfair Stamp. It is running Arvin. I don't know if this is exactly if this was exactly the standard. This was the top list, but post rotation here, this looks very similar to a current list. We see that it's running, Badoo. Badoo is the card that I'd say the final piece in the puzzle to Dragapult EX. We'll kind of take a look at a list today here. I'll just pull it up. This is like a pretty current list. I suppose Pokepad is like a nice little addition to the deck. But other than that, I don't think there are any cards newer than Badoo in the deck. Unless I'm missing something. Honestly, not too many older cards either. Certainly stuff like Iono is a big loss to rotation, but we'll talk about that in just a second. I've certainly talked about a lot on the channel, though, and we'll continue to talk about rotation, so make sure you subscribe so you don't miss that. And again, subscribing really helps support me and the channel as well. But these lists look relatively similar. So we see like Hilda, I guess Hilda, yeah, that card's newer. That kind of replacing Jack, which allowed you to set up your Dust Wars. We see the Dust War, we see Dragapult EX, we see Badoo. And the idea here is that you're running less rare candies. We do see the Arvins to search out the rare candies, so you can do that, and that can be nice, but ultimately the main thing you're looking to do here is set up behind Badoo, set up a powerful hand, a powerful board with Dragapult EX to attack and do a lot of damage where you want it to. And on top of that, you're also going to be able to set up your Dusclops and or Dusknoir and use that to, just go ahead and really pick away at your opponent in a very specific and powerful ways. Again, looking at standard, that's pretty similar to what we see. We do see Blood Moon Luna EX as a finisher. We see Hawlucha. We see Monkey Dory with Luminous Energy here as well. Luminous Energy just kind of smooths out the deck and allows you to play Monkey Dory. Monkey Dory is actually quite good against Dragapult EX. I haven't talked too much about the new Patrat revealed. I was kind of a bit of a hater on it when I was talking about it with Uncommon Fossil on the podcast. I don't think it's super broken, but I do think it is actually good for Dragapult EX because it allows you to counter Monkey Dory, which Monkey Dory is good against Dragapult EX. And, looking at the current standard format, Dragapult EX is very good, and so people playing stuff that's good against Dragapult EX makes a ton of sense, right? And then there's not, I guess there is a lot of stuff to say about current Dragapult, but I imagine most people are pretty familiar with it. And as I said, it's like the same idea of using Dragapult EX and Dusknoir, setting those up behind Badoo, and then doing some really nasty stuff to your opponent that way. We also see Countercatcher and Iono being big parts of the deck, as they were before, as well as Liz Determination. Oh, that card's also newer. I forgot that card. It feels like it's super good and just like a true staple, which it is. So I just think of it as not being a new card, that it is newer than this list here, but you have those just kind of as the backbone, setting yourself up well. You got Boss, just playing good cards, like amazingly good cards, Dusknoir, Badoo. You even look at the Pokemon, the EXs, the basic EXs here, Fezzitive EX, Latias EX, Blood Moon Luna EX. These are all just like straight up very good Pokemon. Yes, Hawlucha is a card that's more of a specific role Pokemon that only works with this deck. Hawlucha doesn't really work with other decks super well, though it works okay in other decks. But most of these are just like objectively really good cards. And the deck's filled with all these really good cards. And we do see the aspec of Neo Upper Energy. Looking post rotation, we see that it's back to running Unfair Stamp. This is due to the fact that the deck is it's running not Iono because Iono is rotating. So you're relying on Unfair Stamp for disruption at times. And we see like Harlequin here. And then we also see 2 copies of Meowth EX to search for Pokemon when you need it. Double Latias EX and double Mega Kangaskhan EX as this draw engine, which is interesting, and a bunch of Monkey Dory just being a card that obviously, as I said, is good against Dragapult. And as I was saying, Dragapult is like super, super, super good. Let's see, is there like an actual tier list? Doesn't look like there. Oh, here it is. Yeah. So this is probably what I should have shown earlier, but Dragapult is like well above all the other decks in the metagame. But in post rotation, things might change. Who knows? There's obviously still time for the metagame to develop. It hasn't even started internationally, but you still see similar ideas of like disrupting some behind Badoo and setting up your board of Dragapult EX. But you also see that the deck isn't running Dusknoir and it's running going for a more, I'd say, stable, steady play pattern. You also have some fun things with Chimpao, using the fact that it is a Terra, doing some fun stuff with that. With their 0 underdepths to do, again, just like bumping Pokemon, doing some cool stuff there. But for the most part, the deck is doing Dragapult stuff. Dragapult EX and Dracloak are just a really powerful pair that cover essentially everything you need to do. And the only thing you need to worry about then here is like energy, which you got Crispin for, and some other tech cards as well. But tell me down in the comment section what your thoughts are on Dragapult EX. And I guess if you're looking forward to post rotation, I like rotation, but I can see why you wouldn't be looking forward to this here. But as I said, make sure you like and subscribe. It really helps support me, my videos, in the channel, and it really does mean a lot to me. But I hope you enjoyed. Also, comment down below any video ideas you have, but I hope you enjoyed, and as always, I'm excited to see you in the next video.